In the summer of 1993, a black SUV pulled up to a farmhouse in the hills of rural Tennessee. Two men in suits stepped out. They weren't salesmen, they weren't neighbors. They were EPA enforcement agents, and they had one mission: to shut down an old man named Hank, not because he was polluting the water, not because he was breaking any law, but because what he had built in his backyard was something the government, the bottled water industry, and the municipal water companies never wanted the American public to see: a $2 water filter that produced water so clean, so pure, that independent lab tests showed it was 14 times cleaner than tap water, and 3 times cleaner than the most expensive bottled water on the market. Old Hank had been drinking from it for 22 years. At 79 years old today, he has never once been diagnosed with a waterborne illness, never had kidney stones, never had the digestive problems that quietly plague millions of Americans who drink municipal tap water every single day. This is the story of Old Hank's $2 water filter, and why the EPA drove 4 hours to make sure you never found out about it. To understand why this matters, you have to go back to 1971, the same year Old Hank quit the electric company. That summer, Hank's youngest daughter got sick. She was 4 years old. Stomach cramps, vomiting, fever. The local doctor said it was a stomach bug, gave her some medicine, sent her home. She got better. Then, 3 weeks later, she got sick again. Same symptoms, same doctor, same medicine. This happened 4 times in a span of 6 months. Hank was frustrated. He was angry, and he was scared, 'cause his daughter wasn't the only one. 3 other children in their small Tennessee community were experiencing the exact same thing. Same symptoms, same pattern, same timeline. Hank started asking questions. What did these children have in common? The answer was simple. They all drank from the same municipal water supply. Now, in 1971, the Safe Drinking Water Act hadn't even been passed yet. That wouldn't happen until 1974, which meant local water companies could put virtually anything in the water, with almost zero federal oversight. Hank went to the county water office, asked to see their filtration reports. The clerk looked at him and said there were no reports, because there was no filtration system. The county was pulling water directly from a reservoir, adding chlorine, and calling it clean. That was it. No additional filtering, no contamination testing, no oversight whatsoever. Hank drove home that afternoon, stopped at the library on the way, and checked out every book he could find on water purification. He read for 3 days straight, and what he found changed everything. Deep in an old agricultural extension manual, published by the University of Tennessee in 1947, Hank found a chapter written by a professor named Dr. Samuel Webb. Dr. Webb had spent 15 years studying ancient water purification methods used by rural Appalachian communities before municipal water systems existed. These communities, some of them dating back to the early 1700s, had developed a remarkably simple filtration system using nothing but 3 natural materials that could be found within walking distance of virtually any rural home in America. The system had kept entire communities healthy for over 200 years. Dr. Webb called it the Appalachian Triple Filter, and the total cost of materials, in today's money, less than $2. The Appalachian Triple Filter works on a principle that modern water companies understand very well. In fact, it's the same basic principle used in high-end commercial filtration systems that sell for thousands of dollars. The difference? Old Hank's version costs $2. Here's how it works. The filter uses 3 layers. Each layer removes different contaminants. Together, they create water that is cleaner than virtually anything coming out of your municipal tap. Layer 1 is activated charcoal. Now, before you think this is complicated, activated charcoal is simply wood that has been burned slowly and without oxygen. Any hardwood works. Oak, hickory, maple. Hank uses hickory because that's what Dr. Webb recommended. You can make it yourself or buy a small bag at any garden store for under $1. Activated charcoal removes chlorine, heavy metals, pesticides, and most chemical contaminants from water. This is not folk medicine. This is established science. It's literally what Brita filters use. Except Brita charges you $40 for a filter that contains maybe 50 cents worth of activated charcoal. Layer 2 is fine sand, not just any sand, river sand. Specifically, the fine, silty sand found at the bottom of clean mountain streams. This layer acts as a physical barrier, removing particles, sediment, bacteria clusters, and microorganisms that slip past the charcoal layer. Again, not complicated. Sand filtration has been used for literally thousands of years. The ancient Egyptians used it. The Romans used it. Your great-great-grandmother used it. Modern water treatment plants use it. The difference is they charge you for the privilege of drinking water filtered through sand that they collect for free. Layer 3 is the one that makes this system special. The one that Dr. Webb discovered in those old Appalachian communities. Small pieces of granite rock, specifically granite that has been sitting in a fast-moving stream for at least several years. This granite, over time, develops a thin natural coating of specific beneficial minerals: calcium, magnesium, potassium. When water passes through this granite layer, it doesn't just get filtered, it gets mineralized. Naturally, the same way spring water gets its minerals, passing through underground rock formations for hundreds of years. Old Hank calls it poor man's spring water, and he's not wrong. Hank built his first filter in the summer of 1971, using a simple clay pot, 3 layers of materials, and gravity. No electricity, no pumps, no moving parts. He filled it with water from the county tap, waited 4 hours, and collected the filtered water in a glass jar below. He took that jar to a friend who worked at a university lab, asked him to test it quietly. 3 days later, his friend called him back. His voice was strange, quiet, almost nervous. He said, "Hank, where did you get this water?" Hank told him. His friend was silent for a moment. Then he said, "This is cleaner than our distilled lab water." Hank told him about the 3 layers. His friend said, "Hank, do you understand what you have here?" Hank said he had an idea. Hank, do you understand what you have here? Hank said he had an idea. His friend said, "Don't tell anyone about this yet, not until you understand what it means." Hank didn't listen. He told his neighbors. He told his community. He helped 14 families in his county build their own filters that summer. Not a single child in those 14 families got a stomach illness. For the next 3 years, word spread quietly, too quietly for Hank's comfort, because by 1993, someone was paying attention. July 14th, 1993. It was a Wednesday morning. Hank was in his garden when he heard the cars. 2 black SUVs. No markings. 4 men got out, 2 in suits, 2 in EPA windbreakers. The man in the lead suit introduced himself as a federal compliance officer. He had a folder in his hand. Inside that folder was a 47-page cease and desist order. Hank stood there in his garden, dirt on his hands, and read every single page. The order claimed that Hank's water filter was an unregistered water treatment device, that distributing information about it to other citizens constituted unlicensed water treatment consulting. So, that the granite mineral layer was technically classified as an unauthorized mineral additive to drinking water. Hank looked up from the papers, looked the compliance officer in the eye, and said, "Son, I'm filtering water with rocks and wood. My grandmother did this. Her grandmother did this. Are you telling me the federal government is going to arrest me for doing what my grandmother did?" The compliance officer didn't answer. He just pointed to the cease and desist order and told Hank he had 30 days to comply. Now, here's where the story gets interesting, because Hank didn't comply. Instead, he called a lawyer friend in Knoxville, who called another lawyer, who happened to specialize in federal environmental law. That lawyer looked at the cease and desist order and immediately noticed something strange. The order wasn't filed by the regional EPA office. It wasn't filed by the state environmental agency. It was filed directly from the EPA's Office of Water in Washington, D.C., for a retired electrician in rural Tennessee with a clay pot water filter. His lawyer said, "Hank, do you have any idea how many resources it takes to get a direct action from Washington?" Hank said he didn't. His lawyer said this didn't come from some local inspector. Someone with serious connections filed a complaint directly to headquarters. Someone who really didn't want people to know what you're doing. The lawyer started digging. What he found was buried under 3 layers of corporate lobbying records. In 1991, 2 years before the EPA visit, a coalition of bottled water companies had donated over $2.3 million to various political action committees. Among the items discussed in their internal meeting minutes, later obtained through a Freedom of Information request, was a line item called Suppression of Unlicensed Home Filtration Advocacy. Old Hank's filter was worth $2, but the bottled water industry was worth $22 billion, and they were not going to let one old man in Tennessee threaten that. The legal battle went on for 2 years. Hank won. Not easily, not quickly, but he won. The federal judge ruled that filtering your own water on your own property for personal consumption was not subject to EPA commercial regulations. The cease and desist was thrown out. Hank walked out of that courthouse, shook his lawyer's hand, and drove straight home. That evening, he sat on his porch, drank a glass of his $2 filtered water, and watched the sunset. He said it tasted like victory. But here's what most people don't know about what happened after that court case. The judge's ruling was never publicized. No press release, no news coverage. The local newspaper that had been following the story suddenly dropped it entirely. The editor later admitted that he had received a phone call from someone he described only as a representative of certain interested parties who strongly suggested that the story wasn't worth pursuing further. The editor took the advice, and Old Hank's victory was buried in a courthouse filing cabinet in Knoxville, Tennessee, for the next 30 years. So how do you build Old Hank's $2 water filter? Here is exactly what you need. Materials: 1 large clay pot or food-grade plastic bucket. Cost: free if you have one. $1 at a thrift store. Activated charcoal granules. Cost: 75 cents at any garden center. Fine river sand or clean play sand. Cost: free from a stream. 50 cents at a hardware store. Tinct: clean granite or limestone rocks. Small fist-sized pieces. Cost: free from any rocky area. 1 small nail or drill bit to make a drainage hole at the bottom. Cost: you already have this. Total cost: under $2. Now, here's how to assemble it. Step 1. Take your clay pot or bucket. Make a small hole at the bottom, about the size of a pencil. This is your water outlet. Step 2. Place your granite rocks at the very bottom, about 2 inches deep. Rinse them first with clean water. Step 3. Add your fine sand layer on top of the granite, about 3 inches deep. Pack it gently, but not too tight. Sit down. Step 4. Add your activated charcoal layer on top of the sand, about 2 to 3 inches deep. Step 5. Place a second pot or bucket underneath to collect your filtered water. Step 6. Pour your tap water slowly into the top. Let gravity do the work. Do not rush it. Slower the water passes through, the cleaner it comes out. First filtration takes about 2 to 3 hours. After that, you have clean mineralized water that costs you nothing every single day for the rest of your life. Old Hank still uses the same basic design he built in 1971. He's replaced the charcoal maybe a dozen times over the years. Each replacement costs him less than $1. His granite rocks are the same ones he pulled from the creek behind his house over 50 years ago. I asked Old Hank once if he was angry about the EPA visit, about the bottled water companies, about the years of silence. He thought about it for a while, rocked in his chair, took a slow sip of his water, and said, "Son, clean water is a right, not a product. The moment we forgot that was the moment they started charging us for rain." He set his glass down, looked out at his mountain, and smiled that slow, quiet smile. The smile of a man who has been drinking the cleanest water in Tennessee for free for 52 years. And there is nothing, absolutely nothing, anyone can do about it now. Old Hank's vault is far from empty. Next week, Hank is going to share something that made a retired NASA engineer drive to his farmhouse unannounced. A cooling system that keeps any home at 70 degrees in the middle of summer with zero electricity, built entirely from materials you can find in your own backyard. The kind of thing NASA used in their early space program research and quietly shelved when the air conditioning industry made them a very interesting offer. You will not want to miss that one. Until then, keep your eyes open, keep asking questions, and remember, the most valuable things in this world were always meant to be free.